from. Moose, can you put yourself on the screen and tell everybody where we're at, what we're doing here today?
Yeah, I can put myself on the screen. I just need a second. Or I should be on the screen now, so we should be good. Yeah, we're good. I don't know if we're on YouTube either. I was told we were going to YouTube and
Oh,
Facebook today.
yeah, I believe that we are. So let's let her
Good.
rip. Here are the guests today. We don't have a lot of time to get to this, so thanks, Darren, for putting up with me. Mickey Mousing there. We've got Jim Barker in his usual spot from the CFL on TSN. We've got Jim Lang coming up in hour 2, Canada's foremost NFL insider, and Super Bowl champion Jon Ryan will be joining us. Longtime friend of mine, former CFLer, and I ran into him at Grey Cup and told me about his new job. He's going to tell you all about his new job with the Seahawks, but also I want to get to the bottom of Aaron Rodgers and the New York Jets. Jon and Aaron Rodgers are close friends, and instead of me speaking out of turn, I'll get JR's take on the crazy antics and with the Gotham Green and Aaron Rodgers being the last one standing. So without any further ado, let's jump in. That's the quick stick show horn, Moose. We're going to try and pack them all into the opening segment here, so we got to go tight. There is breaking news from the NFL. I'm not going to ring the bell again. This out of New York, the Giants are granting Daniel Jones' request to be released, the team announced this morning. Giants president John Morrow said the sides mutually agreed that it would be best for him and for the team to move on. Jones would have to go through waivers, but it's unlikely a team's going to pick up the rest of his 4-year, $160 million contract he signed in March 2023. Not going to ask you, Darren, for your take on that, and I'm not going to give mine. Jim Lang will address it in hour 2. From the Thursday nighter, however, nobody saw this coming. Nick Chubb ran for a 2-yard touchdown in heavy snow with 57 seconds to go, and the Cleveland Browns stunned their rival Pittsburgh Steelers 24-19, snapping the Steelers' 5-game win streak. The Browns had blown a 12-point lead in the fourth quarter. They were down a point before getting the ball back with 3:22 to go after Pittsburgh punter Corliss Waitman shanked a 16-yarder. Now, Moose, on that, full disclosure, I was watching the Florida Panthers Chicago Blackhawks, completely wasted my time on that. I didn't feel like going through the pain of clicking on Amazon Prime. Sounds like I missed a hell of a game. Sounds like it looked like an unbelievable. Well, I saw the photos and the highlights of a snow globe there in Cleveland. Did you watch the game? Be honest.
I only watched bits and pieces of the game. I will be honest with you on that
That's
one.
fine.
Not a lot of the game. I watched enough. And I've seen some of the comments. I'm a big fan of the snow globe games. I am, because they don't happen that often. If it's once or twice a year, a few times, I think it's part of, the history of the game, the elements in that. I thought it looked cool. I thought it was a fun game. Those divisional games are always tough, no matter who you're playing. Divisional games are always tough, and it was tough for Pittsburgh last night.
Well, nobody saw it coming, and as a matter of fact, we're going to skim through all of these, spend a little more time on them later on, but with our discussion yesterday that Around the Horn is being canceled on ESPN, but pardon the interruption, just keeps on trucking. I watched PTI yesterday, and it was a real fascinating chat between Mike Wilbon and Tony Kornheiser about the Thursday nighter, and Kornheiser brought up the fact that the Steelers are like 0-5 on Thursday night games on the road in the AFC North. He's like, I still expect the Steelers to win, but the history shows they don't on Thursday nights on the road in the division. Dagnabbit, wouldn't you know it? History got him again, and the Browns came and bit him in the ass. The Cleveland season is over, and I'm still not sure Kevin Stefanski's going to hang on to his job, but it was a real nice win for them. And here's one before we move on to the next point. Cold weather games. I don't know what the temperature was last night in Cleveland. I could look up what it is there today. It's probably similar to what it was last night. Just because there's snow doesn't mean it was cold. But for everybody, I'm going to ask Jim Barker this next. What's the coldest weather game you were ever involved in, whether it is a fan, in Jim's case, a coach? Darren, you and I are broadcasters, although you played football, so maybe you played in a real cold game. I'll say this, -27 West Final 2010, Saskatchewan Roughriders at Calgary Stampeders. It was unbelievable, but I was in a heated booth at McMahon Stadium. I've long told you, I don't mind that stadium at all. I felt guilty. But the teams had heaters. The refs did not. -27. And the refs didn't have a heater, man. Now, they were the only ones running around all game, but still, that was the coldest weather game. Because during practice, In the 2010 Grey Cup and the 2013 Grey Cup, it dipped to like minus 50. This is Celsius. It's just ridiculous. What's the coldest weather game you were ever part of?
Yeah, cold weather is such a big part of football in Canada. And I remember in high school, we were on a run to
Mm.
a provincial championship in 2001, and I was in grade 9. I remember we had these old, like it was hand-me-down cleats from a box in the storage room, and we all had to put plastic bags on our feet and tie them around our ankles because the shoes had holes in them, and we didn't want the snow coming in, getting our feet wet and cold. But my coldest game I've ever been part of was, I think, the 2018 Hardy Cup in Calgary. I think it was 2018. It was minus 33, and I was on the sidelines. And I
Phew.
was actually, it might have been the year before, because I was still young enough and immature enough that I thought, well, I got to wear my winter coat and all the rest. But I wore my dress shoes on the sidelines because I'm like, I got to look professional in the whole deal. I didn't realize, no, no, no. Wear boots, man. Wear boots. Nobody can see your feet on TV. My feet were frozen. I actually wore socks that day, but it was minus 33.
You literally wonder why I moved to Florida with all these stories. Janice writes in, she's a Stamps fan living in Edmonton. She goes, I was there too, Rod. We were in the stands. Jeff, the Stamps fan, says, that game was cold. I was out in it. Tony from Cochrane says, I looked it up last night. It was 0 degrees Celsius, like 37 Fahrenheit. Zero. That's balmy compared to what we're talking about. And that's what's fun about this show is the stories, because Darren and I have been in the trenches. The viewers have too in their regard. But 2013 Grey Cup, I broadcasted a parade. And I always wanted to broadcast a parade because Paul Harvey, I'd read in his book that he'd broadcast parades. So I'm like, I want to broadcast a parade. I did. The Grey Cup parade, Darren. Scott Schultz was my sideline reporter. It was minus 35 degrees that day before the Grey Cup game. It might even been colder than that. It was the first time in history that the floats were given speeding tickets. I'm sitting there trying to call the parade. Zoom, zoom, zoom. We're just flying down Albert Street. Let's get this thing over with. And Bobby Thompson comes up from the States. He was George Reed's backup in the 1970s. He's in a nylon track coat in minus 35. He's like, I thought he was going to die. Scott Schultz's mic cord snapped. What the hell are we doing? It should be played in the summer. Anyways, what's your coldest weather game, everybody? That's the theme as we roll along here. Now, point two, NHL leftovers. It's probably the only time we're going to talk hockey today. Connor Zary scored midway through the third period to give the Calgary Flames a 3-2 win over the New York Rangers. Frederick Gaudreau had 2 goals and an assist as the Minnesota Wild beat the Edmonton Oilers 5-3. The Oilers have lost 3 of 4. Jake Neighbors scored the lone shootout goal. Jordan Bennington denied all 3 San Jose shooters in the shootout, and St. Louis snapped a 4-game losing streak with a 3-2 victory over the Sharks. I wrote this down, our breakaway bets. I thought we tied 5-5, but you said that that's not correct?
Yeah, I don't think so. I think you beat me. I mean, we could go through them. I don't have the games in front of me right now, but
I had
didn't
the
win a
Oilers.
lot.
You had the Wild. You had the Rangers. I had the Flames. I
Yeah.
see people writing in here and saying, what's wrong with the Oilers? Listen, nothing. Just like the Panthers, man. It's ridiculous. I don't have time for it. You want to worry? I don't have time for you to worry. I'm not going to get into it. They're going, oh, the Panthers. What's wrong with the Panthers? They're like, was last night's game in Chicago a must-win game? No, it's not. Take it somewhere else. It's a downturn. It's a dip. These are great teams. Let's hope it doesn't last too long. But I'm not going to sit here and listen. Worrying is like rocking in a rocking chair. It gives you something to do, but it doesn't get you anywhere. And you don't ever listen. I'm over debating it. Hour 1 is brought to you by Culligan. Drink clean, live green. Filter your water for a healthier tomorrow. Culligan Water of Regina. Visit CulliganRegina.com. Point 3, because it is a football Friday, and I told you and the viewers, I'm not going to talk hockey today. It's 2 hours of football, and it feels good. I want to get a Vanier Cup preview from you, too, so hang on. But the CFL quarterback carousel, going to get a healthy spin here. Producer Clark isn't producing the show today. Darren is. But producer Clark was in our morning meeting, and he came up with this question. Where will Vernon Adams end up via trade? The BC Lions quarterback, the Lions confirming this week they're going to trade VA, and I feel bad for him because he is a great guy. But Nathan Rourke's a great guy, too. There's a lot of great guys in the game. Darren, the options are there's going to be a quarterback carousel spin here. Whether Trey Ford goes back to Edmonton or not, we don't know. Bo Levi Mitchell has said he is open to going back to Hamilton, but not on the same deal he has now. So here are your options for where Vernon Adams will land: Edmonton, Calgary, Saskatchewan, or other. And leading the way in the poll is Calgary. So I feel like Calgary. Start spreading the news. Get your VA3 jerseys. Who wears number 3 in Calgary? Because you're going to need to be giving it up. And I agree. I voted for Calgary because they need him the most. I think they'll give up the most to get him. What do you think?
Well, I think it comes down for me to Calgary and Saskatchewan. I think the Riders have to decide what they're going to do with Trevor Harris. If he gives them the best option to win. I know you put out there that they needed to re-sign him, and I agree with you. I think that's probably what I would do if I was Jeremy O'Day and the Riders. I'd go all in again on Trevor Harris. But if they don't, and they're probably thinking about it, Trevor Harris or VA, they might make a push for Vernon Adams. Calgary just signed PJ Walker again, so maybe they want to go down that road, but they also could use a quarterback. And I think Edmonton's going to be fine. I don't think they're going to be in this. But Ed Hervey, you never know. But you know what? I'm going to vote Edmonton, or Calgary. Jesus, I'm all over the place. I'm going to vote Calgary because I think Saskatchewan will stay with Trevor Harris.
It's all good, man. You're producing the show, directing the show. I get it. And Jim Barker is going to be logging in soon. If he hasn't already, he'll be joining us next on this.
He's waiting.
Is he? Okay, on this Moose DuPont produced program today because IKS isn't available. We're getting through it. You can vote on that. And we're going to get into more of this with Jim Barker when he joins us next, this CFL quarterback carousel thing. But I'll give Darren a lot of kudos. He really, really loves Canadian university football. You've broadcast the Canada West Conference this year. You've broadcast the Ontario OUA Conference this year. The 59th Vanier Cup will be played this weekend in Kingston, Ontario. Laurier versus Laval. And you were on the train of this quarterback for Laurier way back at the start of the year, Darren. So you were probably pretty happy he won the Heck Crichton last night. Can you give us a little preview and talk about your guy?
Yeah, I think he's earned it. Taylor Elgersma, he's the quarterback for Laurier, and he's been, at pro camps, playing bowl games. He's played in them in the U.S. as well. He's big. He's at least 6'4" or taller, 220 some pounds. Like he's a pro-bodied quarterback. And it was slow to get started. I saw the opening game of the year when they were at McMaster. In that game, they won. I was on the call for that game. But he didn't look great. And as the season's gone on, he's gotten better and better. And every time there's you see quarterbacks put up good numbers throughout a season, but his best games were against Western early in the year, best team in the country, against Western again in the Yates Cup, in the national semifinal. He threw for over 300 yards in the first half of the national semifinal, the UTEC Bowl. So he's a great player. He's got weapons. They've got a ground game. But Laval's Laval. I mean, Laval's got, 12 Vanier Cup championships or something like that. They got a lot. They're well coached. Their defense is good. They're just solid, top to bottom. But I think Laurier's got a little more firepower. And since I'm not on the call, I can make a prediction, and I did in my column this week. I think 24-17, Laurier. That's my pick.
Well, that would be something. Thank you for that, Darren. Carlos in Indianapolis writes in. He says, would Calgary go for IU's Curtis Rourke, Indiana's quarterback Curtis Rourke? You know what? I'll put that to Jim Barker next. At $1.1 million in NIL money this year, I don't know that Curtis Rourke is in any rush to examine the CFL, but Jim may have different thoughts on that. Janice, the Stamps fan, says, Calgary needs a quarterback now. PJ Walker is going to take time. Hashtag Stamps fan in YEG. That's the airport code for Edmonton. David number 1 watching in Winnipeg says, I've recovered from the Grey Cup loss with the help of my beautiful 4-year-old daughter. Great season regardless. Gratitude is the mother of all virtues. Be grateful. Alan in Saskatoon writes in. He says, my thoughts are Rick Campbell goes to Edmonton. Vernon, VA, Calgary. I don't, it's like hieroglyphics, what he wrote in there. I can't But thank you, Al. I get it, but I can't read it on the air. I don't understand. My mind's not working that way. We're going to take a break and bring in Jim Barker, five-time Grey Cup champion, to answer all of your questions. We'll be right back on a Football Friday here on Game Plus TV, streaming live on YouTube, of course, and wherever you enjoy your podcasts. It's a DuPont Media production today of a Football Friday, and as usual, we're having a lot of fun on a Football Friday here on Game Plus Television. And as sports fans, there's nothing we love more than a comeback in the game against wrinkles, scars, and acne. It's never too late to revitalize your skin with Alaterra Naturals. Go to their website, alaterra.com, and use promo code RP20 for a 20% discount off your first order. Please welcome in Jim Barker from the CFL on TSN. Before we look forward to a lot of things, Coach, if you don't mind, you're fresh back from the 111th Grey Cup in Vancouver. Argos winning it in an upset. What was your take on the whole week?
Well, the week was fantastic. I thought Amar Doman did a great job. It was a festive atmosphere. Maybe not as many people as there's been in the past. And I don't know if that's because Vancouver's expensive. It just didn't seem to have as many people there as normal. But I felt the game went very similar to what I thought it would. I held my pick until the end, right before the kickoff, and I picked the Argos to win because I felt they would win in the trenches, and they certainly did. So it was an interesting game. I think it could have been a different game had Zach not split his finger open after the Willie Jefferson interception. That the throw that Wilson made in the end zone, he had Lawler so wide. I was standing right there and had him wide open and just made a terrible throw, and might have been a different outcome. But Zach gutted it up, tried to play. Mike O'Shea trusted him to play, and he couldn't. I was watching him on the sidelines, and he would put his hand like this and push it because he couldn't get a grip of it to get on top of it. So he couldn't throw the ball with anything. And I walked by him and said, "Not you." And that was it was, I could just tell that wasn't him. He couldn't throw the ball the way he needed to throw it. So it was kind of inevitable at the end, them trying to come back, and that's what the Argo defense all year, they just, they would come up with pick sixes and make plays. And I thought Wynton McManus was outstanding. I obviously was a candidate for player of the game. I thought he was everywhere on defense, and give Nick Arbuckle all tons of credit. He managed the game beautifully. He really did. He didn't turn the ball over. He didn't give them short fields to play on. I felt in the second half when they came out and drove the ball well, I think they only got a field goal, but I can't remember exactly. But I thought that Winnipeg got out of their game plan and they stopped giving the ball. I mean, Brady only had 9 carries, I think, now he had 52 yards on 2 carries and only had 30 carries on the rest of them. And maybe that's why, because they were in a lot of second and longs, which they aren't usually. So looking at the rosters, I felt like playing 8 defensive linemen. They dressed 8 defensive linemen. Nobody ever can do that because those guys usually can't play special teams. Now, Robbie Smith plays some special teams. He's a little bit of an outlier there, but those defensive linemen rarely play special teams. So they dressed 8 of them.
Yeah, well, hey, the TSN turning point was Zach getting hurt, but as you say, Nick Arbuckle was the MVP of the game, and he was fantastic. He was throwing dimes, made some great throws. Now, looking ahead to the viewer questions here, Carlos in Indianapolis wants to know if Calgary should be looking at drafting Curtis Rourke out of Indiana. It's the biggest game in college football on Saturday. Indiana at OSU. Hoosiers haven't beaten them since 1988. Indiana's unbeaten. What's your take on Curtis Rourke's pro football future past this season?
Well, Calgary has if I was in Calgary, I would not even think about Curtis Rourke. Curtis Rourke he's 6'5", much different than his brother. He's now taken a team. They're going to go to the college football playoffs unless the wheels completely fall off. Even if they happen to lose to Ohio State, I think they're still going to be in the playoff. And he has done that, in a new offense. His NFL stock has risen mightily. If he's drafted in the first 3 rounds, his chances of being in the CFL in the next 5 years are very, very small. So you draft a guy like that, you're going to be gone before, that's the beauty of the CFL draft, is trying to say, okay, how long is Curtis Rourke going to play in the NFL? You go and take him first and you don't get him for 5 years, or maybe you never get him. What does that do for you? So I believe what they're going to do, they're going to either going to go with PJ Walker that they have signed, or they're going to go after Vernon Adams, who again played for Bo Baldwin, the offensive coordinator in Calgary, and I believe he's going to be back. He said he has no desire to go back to college football. He was Vernon Adams' college coach. I believe they would go after him. Again, they're going to have to change their offense to play BA. But what will happen in Edmonton is interesting. Will Rick Campbell go there? Will Jordan Maximic maybe go there? He's interviewing for the Edmonton job. And where Jordan Maximic goes, is that where VA is going to go? Now that he's not going to have a choice. Neil McAvoy came out and said, we're definitely going to we're definitely going to trade him, and we're not giving him any say in it. We're trading him. I mean, they would love to trade him east, but I just don't see any takers there. I think the Montreal quarterback situation is fascinating. I don't think they can keep both of them. Danny doesn't think they can keep both of them. So I couldn't see him going there. I don't see him going to Ottawa. Drew Brown, they're going to go down that path. Obviously, Toronto's in the Chad Kelly, and I believe Bo Levi is going to be set in Hamilton. I don't believe that they would go after VA. So the VA choices are going to be, I believe, are going to be Calgary, Edmonton for sure. Those two will go after him hard, and possibly Winnipeg, but I doubt it. What happens with Buck Pierce will be interesting, and does Zach Collaros come back? Does he come back with a Grey Cup in Winnipeg? Again, a huge blow to them if Zach's not there. And they got a new quarterback coming in, and they're hosting the Grey Cup. So, hosting the Grey Cup puts a lot of pressure on you. And I got fired after a Grey Cup year when we didn't win it. Well, we didn't make it to the Grey Cup. That's what happened to Rick Campbell. He gets fired for, it's interesting. I interviewed, I was on the panel that interviewed Amar Doman. And my question is not going to be a media question, Rod. My question was, how pissed off were you after you lost the semifinal game and you go home and kick the couch? And his answer was interesting. He said, as an owner, I get as angry as I'm sure any coach does. And yeah, now this was before anything happened with Rick Campbell. And he said, there's a certain level that our fans deserve. And that's all I can do is everything on my side. And it was very frustrating. So again, it's frustrating for those that aren't part of the either coaching or, they're either owners or GM. It's difficult. And you basically, everything goes on what goes on the field. So I thought that was real interesting in terms of BC and what's going to happen there. Like I said, there's a lot of interesting moves coming up. What is Hamilton going to do with their GM job? And, there's just a lot of things going on right now that make the league interesting. This is by December, everything should be settled, but these couple weeks really interesting.
Yeah, I got to ask you, I got word yesterday, I'm not sure if you're hearing the same thing, but that Buck Pierce got the blessing of who he needed to get the blessing from to pursue a head coaching opportunity, which would be the BC Lions. So let's assume he takes it. How does that affect the Winnipeg Blue Bombers?
Well, again, then who do the Winnipeg Blue Bombers go to as our offensive coordinator? Could they go back to Lapo? I don't think Lapo really wants to leave because he likes living in Ottawa. He likes TV. But what do they do at the offensive coordinator position? What is Zach Collaros going to do? Who is your quarterback going to be? I mean, obviously that throws, Buck Pierce has been there. He replaced Lapo when he left and went to Ottawa. And I think that's a fascinating one. Will Buck Pierce leave? Again, it's one of those things that Buck's wife is from Winnipeg and has been ill and has had some issues, and he loves it in Winnipeg, and his family loves it in Winnipeg. But he's more from the West Coast, so, and has been in BC before and played in BC, and and they have Nathan Rourke, a 26-year-old, could be a potentially every year, kind of quarterback to take you to the Grey Cup. And it's interesting now because the league has a couple of those guys that are young still, and they can take teams. I mean, Chad Kelly now is, even though he didn't play in the Grey Cup, 2 out of 3 years, team has won Grey Cups with him. So, it's really interesting time to see what's going to happen when it comes to if Buck Pierce leaves, what happens in Winnipeg. But more important is what happens in Edmonton. Is it going to be Rick Campbell, or is Ed Hervey going to do something else? What's going to happen in Calgary with their quarterback situation? I find it hard to believe that Dave's going to put it all on PJ Walker, who is an experienced veteran guy, but he's never played in this league, and that's a tall order. So are they going to go hard after VA, which means they're going to have to give up first-round draft picks and all those kinds of things? It's going to be interesting. BC lost their first-round draft pick. I think they're going to lose it because I think they're so far over the cap that they're going to lose draft picks. You told me that, I think, that they're going to lose. Somebody, when I was sitting down there with you last week, was mentioning they're so far over the cap they're going to lose.
We were sitting together. I think it was a rash, but I'm told they're $300,000 over minimum. That's what I was told just yesterday. So has a lot to do with why there's changes there. But hey, let me ask you this: God bless Ed Hervey and his honesty. He said the Elks are a laughingstock. How long do you think before he reverses that?
Well, I think it was a bit of a cheap shot, to be honest with you. He didn't need to say that. He and Chris Jones have had problems, and again, in my mind, Ed's above that. You know, he could go in and say, you know what, there's problems here, and we're going to fix them. But to say they're a laughingstock is basically a jab directly at Chris Jones, and that's, you know, everybody can do what they want to do. I was surprised by it because that's not Ed's style. Ed's going to go in there and he's going to be very upfront, and he's going to do things his way. I think Chris Morris is going to step back and allow him to build the team how he wants to, hire the coach that he wants to. I mean, one thing about Edmonton, there will not be an accountability problem. This is Ed Hervey's. This team will be Ed Hervey's. If they don't make the playoffs, there's only one place you got to go, and that's to Ed Hervey. And I'm sure he wants it that way. That's how I would want it if I was in those shoes. So again, do you need to take the cheap shot at the last group? I don't think so. But you know, there's history in this league. It's a small league, and I just hate seeing anybody take shots at anybody, to be honest.
Well, hey, you've never done that. That's why you've lasted that long and won 5 Grey Cups. I'm a little surprised that Ed would do that too, but I'll also say this: how the hell did Chris Jones and Ed Hervey inhabit the same building for half a season last year if they hate each other that much, which clearly they do?
Yeah, I think in that situation, Chris basically stayed in his defensive coordinator office, and Scott dealt with the personnel people. So I don't think he had to deal with that, because I thought the same thing as you. I thought, oh my goodness, it's going to be fireworks in there. But I believe that Chris stayed focused on what he was doing. Ed did what he does. And because I don't think there's any love lost there. It's a dynamite situation.
I know.
And you know, I'm going to bet that Ed regrets saying that. Someday there's going to come a time when he's going to say, you know what, I didn't need to call them a laughing stock, because if they struggle, if they choose a quarterback and it doesn't pan out, or the guy gets hurt and he has a tough season, that's going to come back to him. And I just, you know, I look at my own career now. Ed's going back to Edmonton. I look at my own career. You know, I've gone to Toronto, gone to Hamilton, gone back to Toronto. I mean, I've gone to different places, even in my college career. I was at San Francisco State. I left, went to New Mexico State, came back to San Francisco State. You leave, and you if you do things and you don't need to alienate people. What does it do for anybody? What does that do? Does that make it like, I'm stepping into such a bad situation, you better give me 5 years? Is that why he said that? No, because he knows he either wins this year or they're going to be all over him. That's just the way it is.
This is what I don't understand, is how some guys can get away with saying stuff like that and other guys can't. It sticks to them. The thing with Ed is, when he said it, I didn't think about, maybe for half a second I thought it was a shot at Jones, but I'm like, there's no way. But you know, here's the thing, Jim. If there's an Eskimo, it's Ed Hervey. He's an Eskimo. So
True.
For him to say that about the Edmonton franchise, you're right, it looks terrible. No matter how who he was referring to.
Right.
I'm with you. I'm totally with you on that. And let's just look forward, not back, and hope they turn it around fast.
Yeah.
Jim, this has been awesome. Thank you.
Okay.
Talk to you next week.
We'll
All
see you
right.
next week.
The great Jim Barker from the CFL on TSN. Wasn't that fun? We can kick that around more when we come back, whatever you'd like. We have our NFL Week 12 picks coming up. Deal or no deal. That's a big part of hour 2. Jon Ryan's going to join us to talk about his old teammate in Green Bay, Aaron Rodgers, and is he as much of a nut as it looks? We'll be back on this Football Friday on Game Plus TV right after this, live streaming on YouTube, and of course, wherever you enjoy your podcasts. And we are live. Sports fans, join the Rod Squad newsletter today. Stay ahead of the game with exclusive insights, updates, contests, and exclusive content delivered straight to your inbox. Sign up for free today at rodpeterson.com. And by the way, I'm going to jump into a sports update here. It is a Football Friday. With regards, you're going to want to know what you get in that newsletter. You get our best interviews of the week. I kind of have a feeling that for those that didn't see the Jim Barker interview that just aired, that'll be included in the newsletter. I do have some scoops and tidbits. You know, what I did learn yesterday is that it's not Rick Campbell's job. It's not a slam dunk that Rick Campbell's going to Edmonton as head coach of the Elcamos. Apparently, Jordan McSimic, BC's offensive coordinator, and the fired Mark Killam, who've spent like 15 to 20 years with the Stampeders, is in the running to be the head coach there. If Killam doesn't get the Edmonton job, he's going to Sask to be the special teams coordinator there. That's just the rumor. That's just the buzz. I'll have plenty more in the weekly 10 Things column that goes exclusively in the newsletter. Sign up for free now at rodpeterson.com. Let me read a couple text messages here from the crew. The old 85er writes in. He's changed his name, Darren, formerly Vintage Sasko. And before that, Fake Gainer. Guy's having an identity crisis. But he writes in and says, hey, on the Alaterra Skincare text line, 902-518-3033. He says, solid show. Hope to hear some curse words on the YouTube feed today. We're still on TV, right, Darren? They can hear you, right? They can't see you, but they can hear you. Yeah, we're still on
That's correct.
Still on national television, brah. So, no, there will be no swearing. And I just couldn't bring myself really to do it at any point. 36 years in this business, why would I start swearing now? He says, sidetrack, but Grey Cup parades are something I miss. Time to bring them back. Signed, the old 85er. I was a little disappointed that there was no Grey Cup parade at the Grey Cup this year. Darren will attest to this, and he's coming back in hour two. They combined the Santa Claus parade with the Grey Cup parade in Hamilton last year. Darren was there taking all the photos along King Street in downtown Hamilton. It's interesting what Jim Barker said. Maybe less people at this year's Grey Cup in Vancouver. Maybe. I mean, I'm not big for crowds anyway, so I wasn't exactly wading through the crowds. I know it was awesome. And Jim felt it was awesome. 111th Grey Cup Festival. I don't know what the receipts will show. And I'm going to always be the SAS guy, so I'll tell you the 2013 Grey Cup was the best ever. This one was right up there. Kirk writes in from Toronto he's watching on Game Plus TV. He says, hey, Rod, the coldest game for me was at Soldier Field, Chicago in January. My American friend said, no thanks. I'll stay home and watch it on TV. That was the coldest I've ever been at a football game, but glad I went. Well, that's good. Why are we talking about this? Because there was the Snow Bowl game last night. The Cleveland Browns, a last-minute victory over the Pittsburgh Steelers. Massive upset in Cleveland last night in a, what did Zig Fracassi, our good friend from NFL Radio, called it a veritable snow globe setting in Cleveland. Just because there's snow doesn't mean it's cold. We as Canadians all know that, right? So I said, what's the coldest situation you've ever been in for football? And as I said, for me, it was the 2010 Western Final in Calgary. And I felt bad because I was in the heated press box at McMahon Stadium. Call me crazy. I liked that place. I really liked it that day. Dean writes in. He is in Stratford, Ontario. He says, hey, Rod, can you ask Coach Barker what his take is on the rumor John Murphy is leaving the Argos? Signed, Dean, the Argo fan from Stratford. My guess with JB is that he won't necessarily address rumors. I know as much about that as anybody. And what I can tell you is, as of today, John Murphy is a Toronto Argonaut. How about that? You want to throw that one in there, Dupes? Can you say it?
Yeah.
Say it.
Like,
how about
what?
that?
Oh, how about that?
There you go. That's what I was looking
I'm
for.
like the sound effects guy now.
Yeah, you're the sound effect guy, whatever you want. As a matter of fact, if you wanted to ring a bell, it would work a little better than me. We got a full house in here for tenants in the office tower. Trying to keep it down as much as I can. Because it is a football Friday, how about this? Only one game in Week 12 in the NFL features two teams with winning records, and it's the Harbaugh Bowl. John Harbaugh and the 7-4 Baltimore Ravens take on Jim Harbaugh and the 7-3 Los Angeles Chargers on Monday Night Football. It's just their third career head-to-head matchup between the Harbaugh brothers. and their first since the 2012 Super Bowl. Of the 7 division matchups this week, none involves winning teams. The closest is a matchup for first place in the NFC West between the Arizona Cardinals and the Seattle Seahawks. And I should tell you that Jim Lang, Canada's foremost NFL expert, will be with us in hour 2 to talk about all these matchups and all the various NFL news. How about college? Much has been made about the stakes for unbeaten Indiana in Saturday's top 5 showdown with Ohio State. Ohio State hasn't won a Big Ten championships since 2020, so it's a big one for the Buckeyes, too. That also was the last time OSU made the college football playoff, 2020. Ohio State has had its last 3 seasons ruined by Michigan in the final regular season game. Imagine the noise in Columbus if Indiana is the spoiler this year. Buckeyes coach Ryan Day says every game has been must-win for his team since its loss to Oregon. We'll kick around a little college next hour, too, when Moose rejoins us. We're getting into it. And again, if you don't know, and I assume most of you that are watching right now do know, Nathan Rourke's little brother, Curtis, he's younger but bigger, is writing perhaps, they're saying, the greatest story in Indiana sports history. Not just Hoosiers, Pacers, Colts, the whole state. What the Hoosiers are doing with their unbeaten season. Now, tomorrow's game is the biggest of all college, OSU versus Indiana, but what happens after that? Curtis Rourke, here's a reason for you to change. To cheer. Not change to be a college football fan. You'll never do that, but here's a reason for you to watch tomorrow, OSU versus Indiana. And are we ripping him right in half like his brother? Born in Victoria, raised in Oakville. I don't know where we are on that. Darren's the Ontario guy. Maybe he could impart some next hour. But we'll be right back with a full-on sports update and more viewer takeover right after this. We are live on Game Plus Television today, Canada-wide and in 32 U.S. states, streaming live on YouTube and, of course, wherever you enjoy your podcasts. Welcome back, everybody, on a Football Friday. You wondering what I'm laughing at, Moose? This. Remember last year, 2 years ago, I broadcast the very first game ever in the Assiniboia Southland Co-op Center, and it was a junior hockey game between the Southern Rebels and I don't remember who else. Actually, I do. It was Carrot River. Hurricane Huber was opping the board just like you are now. And he's like, when you're ready to go, I'll point at you. I'm like, okay, ready. Well, as we get ready to go on this epic Stanley Cup Game 7 intro that Hurricane that had built, he's got both hands on his board, and then they're ready to throw to me, and he's going like this to me, Darren. Look at me. You're not pointing at me. So then he signs it on because he's like, welcome to the Assiniboia Co-ops. Well, you didn't point at me. So, that's all that you can see it. It's a broadcasting thing. Hockey teams, are you looking for just the perfect place to build your team and have a team bonding session and outing? Well, Overtime Hockey Lanes in Calgary is the place you got to go. State-of-the-art shooting lanes, equipment, spacious lanes, licensed bar, games for all ages. Overtime Hockey Lanes is the perfect destination for fun or to work on your game. Stop in and see him today. Tell him the RP Show sent you, 28th Street, Northeast, Calgary. Now, listen up, people, because I have a movie review here that I'm going to get to in a second. But here is your sports update. Canada opened the second window of the FIBA Men's AmeriCup 2025 qualifiers with an 88-71 win over the Dominican Republic at SaskTel Center in Saskatoon Thursday night. Canada is now 3-0 in the qualifiers and next faces Mexico on Sunday. Trey Bell-Haynes, who was on this show Wednesday, had 8 points, 4 rebounds, and a game-high 10 assists for Canada. Meanwhile, Shohei Ohtani won his third MVP award and first in the National League, and Aaron Judge earned his second American League MVP honor on Thursday. Ohtani was a unanimous MVP for the third time, receiving all 30 first-place votes and 420 points in voting by the Baseball Writers Association of America. Okay, the sports update is brought to you by Landmark Cinemas. In Landmark Cinemas now, Heretic. If I'm even saying that right, I watched it yesterday. 2 young missionaries are forced to prove their faith when they knock on the wrong door and are greeted by a diabolical Mr. Reed, played by Hugh Grant, becoming ensnared in his deadly game of cat and mouse. Has anybody else seen this? I went to it yesterday. It was just me and one other guy in the theater. This was here in Boca Raton, but it was the movie Heretic. And Darren, listen, you're eating. I won't put you on the screen. You can talk. People can hear you. I'm not sure I can even. No, I'm not going to give it a thumbs up. And I'm sure as hell not going to give it 2 thumbs up. The hot dog was very good. I saw the gal roll it herself. But it's like my biggest fear. These 2 girls knock on the door. They're going door to door, pushing Bible sales, basically, for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Hugh Grant goes, come on in, girls. Slams them in the dungeon. You can imagine what happens. They don't get out.
Oh, no.
My biggest fear in life. Not like anybody's going to kidnap and rape me, but it just is. And it happened in the movie. And this is what I don't understand, Darren. I don't think you're a real big slap. But it's with what these movies are now. Like, slashes her neck, blood spurting out. I'm like, not to be a spoiler here, but I'm like, I don't know, is it my age? Or I'm not here for that. It's just gross. As I'm sitting there eating a hot dog, you've seen me at the movies, pounding popcorn. So, Heretic, I mean, I like Hugh Grant. I do. The movie's got its own, whatever, but I wouldn't recommend it. That's just me. You're welcome, Landmark Cinemas. Janet, the Four Seasons, writes in. She says, my Oilers need to do something. Have lost 9 of their last 11. Unacceptable. Or something like that in terms of their stats. Well, because it's a viewer takeover segment, I'll read it, but it's a Football Friday, so we're staying out of hockey for today. Randy from the Peg writes in and says, go Indiana. They're Canada's team, the Indiana Hoosiers, which I feel like I want to watch Hoosiers tonight because if I've seen it, it's been a real long time. I don't remember. Next hour, when we come back, a little college talk, a lot of NFL talk. Moose and I will have our breakaway bets and deal or no deal. Don't let me forget, Darren. It's going to be a busy opening segment. Jim Lang coming up, Canada's foremost NFL expert, and Jon Ryan, Super Bowl winning punter with the Seattle Seahawks. We're going to talk about Aaron Rodgers. We'll be back after this brief pause right here on Game Plus TV, YouTube Live, and of course, wherever you enjoy your podcasts. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Hour 2 of the RP Show, Canada's favorite daytime sports talk show, coming at you live on Game Plus TV, coast to coast, Canada-wide, and on the air in 32 U.S. states. It's a little thing we call Football Friday. It's a DuPont Media production. Our usual broadcast production partner, IKS, not available Thursday and Friday, but that's okay. Darren's doing a tremendous job. And again, I feel bad, Darren. We're going to have to rush through this segment here because Jim Lang's coming up in the next NFL Canada's NFL expert, and Jon Ryan in segment 3 of this hour. I'm just going to tell everybody that what they should do. If you missed the Jim Barker interview from hour 1, go back and watch it. We covered it all. A Grey Cup recap, the 111th Grey Cup with Winnipeg falling to the Toronto Argonauts by a score of, 41-24 at BC Place in Vancouver. We talked about that. And, okay, we talked about the coaching carousel, the quarterback carousel, our poll question today for EMJ Marketing, which, by the way, they'll provide the perfect keynote speaker for your event. Look up Joe at emjmarketing.com. Where will Vernon Adams Jr. end up via trade? BC Lions confirming he'll be moved. We don't know where. Your options are Calgary, Edmonton, Saskatchewan, or other. And leading the way by a mile is Calgary, and both Darren and I voted for that. But Jim Barker, unsolicited, Darren brought up, he said it was a cheap shot. That on the day he was introduced as general manager of the Edmonton Elks, Ed Hervey would call the Edmonton franchise a laughingstock. They become a laughingstock in the league. Jim Barker says it was a cheap shot at Chris Jones, the last coach and general manager there. Can't say he's wrong. What do you think about Jim's comments and the fact that Ed Hervey said that?
Yeah, as I listen to this, it's hard to think that Jim's wrong on this. And he applies some good perspective. Like, we talked about it yesterday and kind of said, look, like, at least he's being honest, Ed Hervey, and saying it, and means he can, go a little, like, nowhere to go but up. But Jim's absolutely right. There's better ways to say it. You didn't need to do that. And you definitely didn't need to do that in public, and probably ended up being a cheap shot. We'll see how this goes over and if it has any effects beyond this or if it's just going to disappear. But yeah, Jim's right. Ends up being and looking like a cheap shot.
Yeah, well, you don't say those things. And not only do you bite your tongue, I don't think you even think those things. You call it post-game trash talking and you hate it.
Yeah.
So it's like Ed Hervey. Now, I love that stuff and I shoot my mouth off all the time, or did. I don't really do it anymore, but that's why I don't really, because I've paid for it. And I don't understand why some people, I've asked you a million times, never gotten an answer. Why can some people get away with it and others don't? You say nobody gets away with it. We just don't see their punishment. Do you still think
right.
see, I'm listening to you. Do you think that's
I believe
the case?
it.
Yeah. Do you
I
think that's
do.
the case?
I think
with
that's
the
the
Elks?
case. We never know what somebody else is dealing with and who's in their DMs or their emails or what phone calls they get after they say certain things. We don't know. We think they just got away with it, but behind closed doors, there's a lot going on behind the scenes. So it's hard to know for sure. I mean, some people get it in public a lot more than other people, for sure. I get that, but no, I think everybody deals with it.
Well, Aaron in Winnipeg writes and he says it was a great press soundbite. Yeah. I mean, not only have I had a tough time biting my tongue my whole life, I'm at the point I don't care anymore. So yeah, that's why I have a show. Ed Hervey. Jim says if he doesn't regret it now, Hervey will regret down the line calling the Edmonton Elks a laughingstock and that it was a shot at Chris Jones. Whatever, we'll see. And if he's not getting hell from whoever hired him there, karma may bite him in the ass too. Be better, Ed. Be better. Not bitter. Okay, Moose. Listen, just for fun, there are only 2 NHL games tonight. Bomber Boy is watching in Calgary, and he writes in, hang on. He says, where's Bomber Boy? I lost it. Yes. Another big game for my Winnipeg Jets tonight. Potential trading partners between the Pens and my Jets are in the future. Well, they already made a trade, right, in the summertime. Rutger McGroarty for Braden Yager. But whatever. Maybe they're going to trade again. Who knows? We're talking about tonight. Only 2 games to play. NHL breakaway bets. Winnipeg at Pittsburgh tonight. I think it's a pretty easy one, Darren. Who do you think wins?
Yeah, it's Winnipeg for sure for me.
Well, this will be easy. And Buffalo at Anaheim. That is a very long road trip for the Sabres. Buffalo is at Anaheim. Going to affect them at all, do you think? Who wins
I
tonight?
don't know. Anaheim actually, has been okay lately. I'll take the Sabres, though. I like Buffalo a little bit more.
Okay. I'll take Anaheim just to be the rub. You understand how it is. This sport betting is so much fun. We pick the
Yes.
games, but we don't put money on it. If you have a gambling problem, you might want to consider this. You're welcome. NFL Week 12, deal or no deal. Huge upset last night. Pittsburgh Steelers were favored by 3.5 in Cleveland, and the Browns won at home, courtesy a last-minute touchdown by Nick Chubb, 1 of 2 on the night for Nick. Let's get a roll on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Moose are at the New York Football Giants. The Giants releasing Daniel Jones today and announced that Tommy DeVito, will be the starting quarterback the rest of the way, or at least for this week. Tampa is favored by 6 at MetLife Stadium. Deal or no deal?
Deal. I saw Daniel Jones with his goodbye press conference yesterday before asking for the release, but no, Tampa today.
It's a deal for me too. Bucks favored by 6 at the New York Giants. The 9-1 Detroit Lions going to Indianapolis, where I believe they're in quarterback disarray. The Lions are favored by 7. Deal or no deal?
I'm going to take the deal, but Indy has a chance to keep the game close.
It's a deal for me too. We're not being careless here. We really mean it. The Tennessee Titans, your team, at the Houston Texans in an AFC South battle. The Texans are favored by 7.5. Deal or no deal?
Deal.
Yeah, they're coming around, those Texans, even though they had their way with the Dallas Cowboys on Monday night. Everybody does.
Yeah.
The New England Patriots at the Miami Dolphins. The Patriots are the only team the Dolphins beat without Tua this year. And now they got Tua. This Sunday, the Dolphins are favored by 7.5. And they're going after the 3rd straight win. Deal or no deal?
These are big. I usually hate these big spreads, but I just don't like the Patriots this year. I'll take the deal.
Me too. The biggest point spread shouldn't surprise anybody. The Washington Commanders are home to the Dallas Cowboys. Washington favored by 10.5. You didn't even care. You didn't even care, right?
Yeah, exactly.
This will give me a reason to watch. I'm not going with the deal. Let's see if the Cowboys have any pride in them left. I don't think they do, but it'll give me a reason to watch because I'm saying they'll beat the spread. The Minnesota Vikings at the Chicago Bears. The Bears have lost 4 in a row, and Caleb Williams has not thrown a touchdown pass in any of those 4 games. Vikings favored by 3.5. Deal or no deal?
Yeah, I'll take the deal. I will. Although I think Chicago will figure it out eventually.
Just not this week, huh?
No, not this week.
The Kansas City Chiefs are at the Carolina Panthers. Yes.
Deal.
Yeah, deal. It's 10.5.
Oh,
9-1 Chiefs. 9-1 Chiefs at the 3-7 Panthers. We're both taking the deal. Chiefs favored by 10.5. And they're coming off a loss, too. So they'll be snarly. The Chiefs, that is.
Yeah.
How about this? The Denver Broncos at the Vegas Raiders. I think it's 5 in a row the Raiders have lost. Broncos are favored by 6 with Bo Nix pulling the trigger. Deal or no deal?
You get a deal there, too. I know this year is weird. There's been not a lot of favorites winning. There's been more upsets, but I still will take Denver.
It's a deal for me. Denver favored by 6 at Vegas. The Arizona Cardinals at the Seattle Seahawks. Seahawks favored by 1 point. It's the sneaky second best game of the week. Yeah. Cardinals and Seahawks. Seattle favored by 1. Deal or no deal?
No deal. I'm buying all the Kyler Murray stock I can get my hands on.
Okay, I'll take the Seahawks just to be fun. San Francisco at Green Bay. I have no idea why some are predicting an upset. 49ers don't look anything like the team that went to the Super Bowl last year. Green Bay is favored by 3 at home. Deal or no deal?
Deal. You know, you circle this at the beginning of the year as like one of the games of the season, and it is absolutely not. It's going to be, Green Bay wins.
Philadelphia at the Los Angeles Rams in prime time Sunday night. The Eagles have won, I think, 5 in a row, or is it 6 in a row? They're hot. Eagles favored by 3 at the Rams. Deal or no deal?
I'll take the deal on the road. Yeah, Eagles are good. They're in my top 5.
And then the Harbaugh Bowl on Monday night. It's just the 3rd meeting ever between Jim Harbaugh and John Harbaugh. John's still coaching the Ravens. He always has. Jim Harbaugh now coaching the LA Chargers. They haven't gone head-to-head, Jim and John, since the Super Bowl in 2012. The Ravens are favored by 3 in this one. Deal or no deal?
Ravens really need to bounce back. So I think the Ravens are a little more desperate. So I'll take Baltimore.
That's the game of the week. There's no doubt about that. That's 2 winning teams. It's a non-divisional battle, but I'm not going to take the deal. No. I like what the Chargers are doing. It's a tough one for you because you like Jim Harbaugh, right?
Yeah, big fan. Big Jim Harbaugh guy.
Randy, do we have Jim Lang logging in? Is that
we
what's
do?
Going on? Okay,
yeah, he's waiting.
We'll take an early break, and that'll give us more time to talk NFL with Canada's foremost NFL expert, Jim Lang, when we come back. Thanks, Moose. We did it all.
You're welcome.
Have a great weekend.
Thank you.
And enjoy the Leafs on Sunday. We'll be right back with Jim Lang. Get your NFL questions in, everybody. Live across Canada on Game Plus Television, 31 U.S. states. We'll be right back. And Jon Ryan coming up from the Super Bowl champion Seahawks as well here on Game Plus TV, live streaming on YouTube, and, of course, wherever you enjoy your podcasts. All right, welcome back, everybody, to Football Friday. By the way, the Alaterra Skincare text line is open. Questions or comments welcome for Jim Lang, our next guest. Is your skincare starting rotation giving up big hits to wrinkles, age spots, and acne scars? Revitalize your self-care roster with Alaterra's all-natural lineup of nourishing products. Alaterra.com. Use promo code RP20 for 20% off your first order. Let's bring him in. Jim Lang. We have a lot of things to get to, Jimbo, beginning with a huge Thursday night football upset last night. The Cleveland Browns knocking off the Steelers in the dog pound in a Snow Bowl. Nobody saw that coming, did you?
No, I did not, to be honest with you, especially the way the Steelers have been playing, Rod. But what was fascinating was the revitalization of Nick Chubb. And people forget before that devastating injury, how much of a money in the bank running back he was for Cleveland. And we saw a glimpse of his prime self last night, especially in the horrible weather conditions, fourth quarter, just powering his way through the Steelers defense for that victory. So, I mean, with Cleveland, it's only their third win of the year. They haven't had a lot to cheer about, but to see Nick Chubb come back after the injury problems he's had and play like he did last night, for a football fan, you have to be happy about that.
Yeah, there's no doubt. Tony from Cochrane writes in, he says, so the Browns lose to the Bengals and then beat the Ravens and Steelers. Gotta love the AFC North. Good old slobber knocker football. That's always a great division. But what's more intriguing, this one or the NFC West, Jim, with the playoff battle that's going on there?
I think that's intriguing, and I also think the battle of Minnesota Green Bay in the NFC North is intriguing as well. I don't think people thought that the Arizona Cardinals would be consistently good and Kyler Murray would be as consistent as he has been. And that's been the one that's people thought they would just fade away and it wouldn't be a contest. Well, they're not going away. And it's the same thing with Minnesota and Green Bay. Both teams have had to deal with some injuries, but both teams have depth. They're very well coached and they're well prepared every week. And so there's two things going on in the NFL right now, Rod. You have those teams like the Ravens and the Steelers battling out. We have the Vikings and Packers, the NFC West, and then you have so many teams with just 2 and 3 wins who look just completely hopeless. And in the parody that is the NFL, that was Pete Rozell's dream for years ago, I don't think there's ever been this many teams this late in the season with this few wins. It's a real anomaly in the National Football League.
Okay, I'm glad you said that because teams were out of it pretty fast.
Yes.
So as far as the parity, there's not a lot. What was it? The rich and the poor. There's a wide gap, and
more than I've ever seen in recent memory.
Yeah, and the news this morning, the New York Giants, they're one of them. They're granting Daniel Jones' trade request. President John Mara says the sides mutually agreed that it would be best for him and for the team to move on. They're openly tanking it. What's your read on the Giants situation and Daniel Jones?
Well, think about Daniel Jones, and everyone wants to pile on him, but think he's had 3 head coaches since he's been drafted, 3, and he's been sacked over 200 times in 70 games. I don't care how talented you are as a quarterback. You can't be sacked that often and have that many head coaches and be successful at any level of football. And so now the Giants have a cap hit of about 45 plus million this year and over 20 million next year when they part ways. And it's almost like starting over. And this is, I mean, we're at the point now that there's so many teams, as you say, Rod, that were out of it long ago. The Bill Belichick, where is he going to go watch, just got turned up a notch because of his history with the Mara family, because of his history with the Giants. I mean, there's already rumblings that the Jaguars are prepared to offer him the keys to the kingdom to take over Jacksonville, but he goes back 4+ decades with the Giants. And I really wouldn't be surprised if the Mara family said, whatever you want, we don't care about the money. How much power do you want? What do you need? Turn this back into a winning team again. So this is where Bill Belichick has his choice, not just of where he wants to play, but how much say, how much power, how much control of the franchise he will get wherever he ends up.
You know, I'm fascinated to get your take on Dallas, and I very rarely ask you about the Cowboys because I don't want to hear the truth from you. But you know, you can strike Dallas off the list for Bill Belichick because Jerry Jones doesn't want a strong personality in there. But I want your take on like I'm one of those Cowboys fans that wants to see Prime come in, Coach Prime. He has shot down the rumors that it's going to happen. But Colorado's in the middle of their season. What else is he going to say? Where do you think the Cowboys go from here? Because it's over and everybody's going to be gone.
Again, it's if Jerry Jones would just swallow his pride one time and step aside and give someone of the pedigree of a Bill Belichick or the like and let them run the team. Look what Sean Payton's doing in Denver. Look what Jim Harbaugh's doing with the Chargers. Those are complete turnarounds. And they're doing it in Denver with a rookie quarterback and Bo Nix. If you get the right coach and the right system and the right personnel, you can turn things around. Dallas still has got talent on defense, talent on offense. They need to rebuild the offensive line, but with the right coach in there and given some space to do their job and not be always looking over their shoulder and second guessing them. Dallas still has some key pieces in place where they can be good again in a real hurry, but it all comes down to Jerry Jones, Rod. And until he acts like an owner, not an owner, GM, player, personnel, scout, de facto coach, and media relations director, it can't change.
God. He is God
Right.
of football in Texas. And I heard a term this week from a pundit that said the Cowboys were unfixable. And I felt that. Because they're right.
No, well, with the current ownership and the way it's structured, they are unfixable. But it's a simple thing. Hey, Jerry Jones is not getting any younger. And if you study GMs, people in charge of scouting and personnel in the NFL, NHL, baseball, it is a 7-day-a-week job. It is not for the faint of heart. They're always in a rink, in a stadium, in a studio looking at film, trying to find the next big player. And I'm not trying to be an ageist, but how could he own the team, market the team, sell the team, scout for the team, sign contracts for the team, and be successful at everything?
And yet he does it. And he was up at 11 o'clock at night being interviewed on the Jake Paul, Mike Tyson broadcast because I watched it. That's the one at 51, which is what I am. I don't have the energy I used to. But the one thing is I will say his age is just a number because Bill Belichick's 73. He's not that much younger than Jerry. So if you have the energy and the spirit, I say go do it.
I just think that owning, marketing, and selling a team, a franchise, which is one of the most valuable sports franchises in the world, like the Dallas Cowboys, is a full-time job. But then to be the GM and the head of scouting and personnel and signing free agents and take on that role as well, I don't know. I don't care if you're 35 or 85. I don't know anyone equipped to do that.
Yep. Yeah, I know you're right. And look at where they are. Okay. You're on the big marquee on the docket with Jon Ryan here this hour. Jon Ryan's coming up next, and I brought him on to talk about his close friend Aaron Rodgers. They spent a lot of time together in Green Bay.
Yeah.
Aaron Rodgers is the last guy standing in New York on the green side with the Gotham.
Yeah.
He's the last guy, Jim.
Yeah, I know.
Just give me your summation of how this has gone.
I was just actually talking to someone at work about this because in baseball yesterday, they announced that Shohei Ohtani and Aaron Judge were the MVPs. And baseball had such a fabulous end of the season because it was New York and LA. And I don't care what sport you are, when you have the two biggest population markets, the two biggest TV markets, and they're good and they're competitive, it's good for the entire league. Like the Rams are a competitive team, the Chargers are a competitive team. That's good for California. But it's not good for the NFL and not good for the networks and not good for the brand to have two New York teams who are so dysfunctional. And everyone's scratching their head like, where do they go? Where do they turn? Who's going to be the coach? Who's going to be the quarterback? There are so many questions with both franchises. And there's so many hard decisions to make with both franchises towards the end of the season into the offseason. It's not good for the NFL to have both New York teams, as you say. Here we are a week away from U.S. Thanksgiving, and neither one have a hope of even the wild card. Unless the mother of all miracles happen, they're not in it.
Jim, this has been epic because I've got Jets fan friends. You have Jets fan friends, the pundits, the fans. Everybody thought this was the year they were going to the Super Bowl. And instead of that, it's been the biggest colossal F up in franchise history. And the one guy in the middle of it all is Aaron Rodgers. And that's why I want to ask Jon Ryan, is this guy being unfairly maligned? Because this is what it looks like to me.
You know, okay, you look around the league, I see a young, humble CJ Stroud in Houston doing well. I see a young, humble Jordan Love and the Green Bay Packers doing really well. Now, there's a theme here, young or old. I see someone who's a team player, who's a quarterback, who tries to be a quarterback, who doesn't try to, hey, let's go sign Rod Pedersen. Let's go sign Moose. Let's go. If they come to you and say, hey, we're thinking of signing Rod Pedersen, what do you think? That's different. And because he's earned that right because of his time in the league, and they go, you know what, I work really well with him in Green Bay. It would be a good signing, bring in Devontae Adams. I think you need a really strong hand with the Jets, strong enough to run the Jets, rebuild them, but also strong enough to say to Aaron Rodgers, you're the quarterback, be the quarterback. I'll do my job, you do your job. It's pretty simple. If you want to coach, here's the whistle. I'll just go down to Boca Raton and fish.
It's usually how it goes. Exactly. Utah, Darren writes in, he says, Coach Prime is prime for the picking. His 3 boys are done at Colorado. He has left every time his family is done at a place. And I think, to be honest, I hope he comes because I love Prime. And I also think Jerry Jones could control him. I think Prime is controllable. I don't like that scenario, but it's the best of a bad situation. You're not getting Bill Belichick. Colin in Ottawa writes in, he says, New York Jets fan here. The team's owner, Woody Johnson, is the new Daniel Snyder of the NFL. And by the way, speaking of ownership, you're a Raiders fan, or at least the last I checked, you are. Do you think Tom Brady will have some influence in the fortunes of that team? I know he's not supposed to, but we all know he will. He'll have some. Go ahead.
I'm convinced he will, Rod. I'm convinced. So once the season's over and his broadcast obligations are over, and if he is a minority owner, there's nothing to prevent him to go to Mark Davis and say, have you seen this kid from Baylor? Have you seen this kid from Syracuse? Who better to get their input on free agents in the draft about not just the quarterback position, but positions around the league? He only stopped being an everyday player a couple of years ago. He's well acquainted with the league, who's a good player, who's a good guy, has a good work ethic, who's a good person in the locker room, who may be potential a good free agent, a good draft pick. I think it would be crazy not to get his input because of his resume. And it's well documented. 6th round pick. No one gave a chance to be a starter, becomes the greatest quarterback in the history of the NFL. I want to know what he thinks. If I'm an NFL team and he's part of my ownership, you'd be crazy not to ask him because he will see things because of him being Tom Brady that even a scout or coach or an owner would not see. He'll go, I saw that, and they go, oh, and
of course,
that's when you play at that level. It's what they talk about. You slow the game down. The vision, great athletes at all sports say the same thing. And there's definitely Tom Brady sees things that the average human being, no matter what their job in a football team, does not see.
You and I have been around the block. We've worked for some big corporations. And sometimes, Jim, the people at the top of those corporations don't get it. Stick with me here. Like, for instance, there's all these restrictions on Tom Brady. You've seen them, right? He's not allowed to go to practices. He's not allowed to do this. He's not allowed to talk to this guy. I'm like, do you nincompoops not think he could get his way around that? You don't understand that because you haven't worked on the front lines. It's like Steve Wynn, who went from parking cars at Caesar's Palace to owning the place, and he's held every job in between because that's why he's been so successful. You guys in the ivory towers don't understand. If Tom wants to talk to a player, he's going to talk to a player. You don't get it.
So imagine your iPhone dings and you see a text from Tom Brady, and you're the receiver for the pick the team Seattle Seahawks, and you're DK Metcalf, and Tom Brady's texting you to ask about a game. I'm pretty sure you're going to respond.
Exactly.
No, block. No, you're going to respond. It's Tom Brady.
I just can't believe people in high places don't even understand how things work in their own place of business. It shocks the hell out of me. Aaron Aaron in Winnipeg writes in, he says, it's interesting how having high-end talent doesn't always translate into instant success with football and hockey teams. No, because if it was easy, everybody would do it. And that's, we don't have time to go through that. It's so flipping delicate. Jim, you look like you have some thoughts on that.
Well, I think we saw a great example last Sunday in the Grey Cup. Ryan Dinwiddie had a backup quarterback, but he had a team. And the team was prepared and ready to play and made the most of any mistake Winnipeg made and every opportunity and won the Grey Cup. And time and time again, we have seen teams in the NFL who on paper had no business winning a game, and they won. And it's the whole concept of any given Sunday. If your team plays the best game, a 2 or 3 win team could beat a 10-win team. And that's the beauty about football and the beauty in sports. And that's why we watch it.
Yeah. When I thought he was talking about individual talent, but no, it's team talent. But it all kind of comes down to me, one word: attitude, culture,
Yes.
all of those things. What's the last thing I could 10 questions I could ask you. What's burning on your mind before I let you go? Last word.
We're a week away from the U.S. Thanksgiving, the triple header. This year, the Lions are the team to beat in the NFC, which hasn't happened on a Thanksgiving Thursday game since they started playing them in the early 60s. It's been that long. And as long as they stay healthy, this is the next step. You'll hear anyone in the NFL say the real season starts on Thanksgiving. And after this weekend, we're coming up to the U.S. Thanksgiving. And the Lions, barring some bizarre injuries or a complete collapse in the postseason, they are the team to beat in the NFC. And what Dan Campbell's done and what their GM and their player personnel, the team they've built, it's so good. They suffered for so long. They were the laughing stock in the NFL for so long. They were always the team that got walloped on Thanksgiving. And now they are among the pedigree teams. You have to rank them right up there with the Chiefs and all the best teams in the league right now. And the Bills.
Oh, absolutely. The Bills, the team that nobody talks about. Maybe this will be the year because nobody's really talking about them. Darren, let me know when Jon Ryan logs in. Has he attempted?
Not yet.
Not yet? Okay, good stuff. Well, we are out of time for this segment. Jim, I wish I could get with you face-to-face. I'll settle for this, though, man. Thanks for this. Let's do it again before Christmas. Maybe a quick plug for Everyday Hockey Heroes and where people can get it. Good Christmas gift idea, huh?
Everyday Hockey Heroes Volume 3, Amazon Canada, Indigo, Chapters. You can get a Costco. Wherever you buy your books, you can get a copy.
Nice stuff. Happy.
And by the way,
yeah, go ahead.
Rod, your skin looks fantastic.
Alaterra, yeah. I don't just talk about it.
I wanted to say something.
I live it. I don't know what it is. Oh, it's Alaterra. That's what it is. Thanks, Jim. Appreciate you. Checks in the mail. We'll be right back with Super Bowl champion Jon Ryan, everybody, on a Football Friday live here on Game Plus Television, live streaming on YouTube, and wherever you enjoy your podcasts. Sports fans, were brought to you in part by EMJ Marketing. Connect with thought leaders and industry experts through EMJ Marketing's Speakers Bureau. Check them out at emjmarketing.com. I'm back home in the South Florida studio. Moose is operating the show from the Toronto studio. And now we go to Los Angeles to welcome our good friend Jon Ryan, who you see is very much in the holiday spirit. Super Bowl champion winning with the Seattle Seahawks, Jon Ryan. Hey, Johnny, Merry Christmas, I guess. Man, you're really into the spirit out there.
Yeah, I mean, it looks like the North Pole just puked all over my house. So that's what I'm working with here. And I'm very happy about it. I love the Christmas holiday time, so I really indulge in it.
I said, well, who do you credit for your love for the Christmas holiday season?
My mother. You know, my mom was always huge into Christmas, and she always decorated. It was always a special time of year for us. She did all the baking, all the decorating, all the gift giving. So just she kind of instilled that in me, that it's an important time of year.
Humanitarian of the Year, the Red Cross Humanitarian of the Year, the lovely Barb Ryan. John, I ran into you at Grey Cup, and I almost said Super Bowl, but it wasn't Super Bowl. It was the 111th Grey Cup Festival in Vancouver. You were up there representing the Seahawks, and I just would love to know your take on the event and what you were doing there and all that.
Yeah, the Seahawks had me out there to, promote the Seahawks north of the border. You know, we have a lot of fans in that area in BC and Vancouver. So they had me up there, and it was kind of fun to be at those festivities, not just for me, but to be there with 5 Americans who had never experienced that before, and just kind of get their takeaways from it. And they thought it was so cool the way it's really just like a melting pot of Canadian football. It's a celebration of Canadian football. And they kind of say, when you go to the Super Bowl, there's 2 teams being represented in the Super Bowl. When really, when you go to the Grey Cup, it's all 9. I should say 10 teams, because the Atlantic Schooners were well represented there as well. So it was just you see fans from every single team, and not just a few, but hundreds from every team, and they were just really impressed by that as well as I was.
Yeah, I love the way you said that. And now that I've been to a few Super Bowls, now that you say that, it is about the 2 teams, and the CFL is about the league. That's really cool, and it was nice to see you there. By the way, from the audience, Jeff, the Stampeders fan, writes in. He's watching from Calgary. He says, beautiful red and white colors, John. Brent Waltman writes in. Brent is watching here in Wellington, Florida. He says, Jon Ryan, McGlurg Elementary's most famous alumni. That's a new one. Is that true?
McClurg Mustangs, baby, forever and always.
Okay, gotcha. Okay, now, John, the reason, I don't know if I told you, what I wanted to ask you about was Aaron Rodgers, because I know how close you guys are from your days in Green Bay. He's not, even before the meltdown of the Jets, he was being maligned with his McAfee show appearances and all his takes. Is he being unfairly maligned for what's going on with the Jets this year or not? What kind of guy is he?
I think it's a little unfair. I'll tell you what kind of guy he is. I think it showed a lot when he was on Hard Knocks. I think it was last year. And, a lot of teammates kind of like, they see him on TV and they see him doing all this crazy stuff, or maybe a little conspiracy theorist type stuff out there as well. And then they see him as a teammate, and every guy on that team was like, wow, this guy's awesome. Like, what a great teammate this guy is. What a great guy to have in the locker room. And, when I played with him, he's a great teammate, one of the best teammates I've ever had. So I can only speak to that part of him, but being a teammate with him, then I thought he was one of the best I've ever had. That was 15 plus years ago now. But I think it's a little unfair what's happened here. I think they kind of put all their chips on a 40-some-year-old quarterback, and they kind of had said this year was going to be the year. It's do or die, all or nothing. And then you fire your coach 5 weeks into the year, kind of already given up on the season. Then you fire your GM. So I don't think they've really put a lot around him to be successful, to be honest.
Well, you know what? Here's the thing. Now that you are a team owner, you look at things differently. You and I have talked about this, and you're seeing it the way I did. It looked like they were trying to recreate in New York what was going on in Green Bay. You can't do that. That very rarely works.
No, it doesn't. You need your own identity. And, it just didn't feel good right from the start last year, obviously getting hurt on that first drive. And then, just putting all their eggs into one basket this year, and then, giving up on it so quickly after you put everything into it, it was very unusual to me. And I don't know if, obviously it looks like the owner's kind of running the show there. And, it from the outside, it looks like a complete mess.
It's funny you talk about how long ago it was that you played with him, and I guess we're all getting old. But when's it sinking in how special your career was overall, Not to mention going to two Super Bowls and winning one with the Seahawks. Is it hitting more and more the older you get?
It really is. When you're right in it, I just retired 2 years ago. When you're in it, you can't really look back. You're always kind of, looking forward. And now that I'm out of it now for a couple of years, things come up here and there. Talking to young people, the other day I was talking to someone how, I sat next to Brett Favre for 2 years. That's something that you look back and kind of pinch yourself. You're like, how did that happen to me? And to come where I came out of, come out of Regina, and to be able to do what I did is just, still to this day I kind of pinch myself to, can't quite believe it happened.
I was watching it front row. I just seemed like this is Johnny doing his thing. Setting records with the Bombers, you know what I mean? And then just doing the NFL thing. But it's so hard. You look back at the hard work. Did it feel like hard work at the time, John?
Never. I loved every minute of it. I love being in the field by myself for hours and hours a day in the off season. I love being in the weight room. I truly just loved all of it. And I never took any of it for granted, which I'm very fortunate that I didn't do that. And it's one of those things people always ask me now if I miss it, and I don't, because this is my next phase of my life, and I loved every minute of it. Now moving on to the what's next.
Correct me if I'm wrong, and I know you will, but you were credited as kind of being one of the very first, not just in shape punters, but dare I say, ripped punters. It's like they all are now. But yeah, can you talk about that?
I guess I was one of the first guys. I always took a lot of pride in being in shape, working out with the linebackers, the running backs all the time. Not really just calling in those workouts like back in the day some of those guys did. And as well, just for me I'm 6 feet tall, which in the punting world is short. All these guys are 6'5", 6'6", and so I always had to be a little bit stronger than most guys at my position, because that's where I made up for the shortness in that position. But yeah, you look at the guys now and they're all 6'5", 220, 230. I mean, these guys, not only are they great athletes, but they're in great shape too. It's no longer days of I grew up on some of the Paul F. Baldwin's guys like that who were unbelievable kickers and punters, but they were also smoking in the corner and having donuts between between halves.
And proud of it. And here's the thing, I'm going to ask you about your Grey Cup experience in a second, but having the chance to talk to Lou Pasaglia, and you remembered his last game. It was against the Riders, and he said, he got the ball on a third and goal from the 1. He's like, I don't think I got in, Rod. I'm like, you didn't, Lou.
You did.
But Johnny, think about, how old are you now?
I'm 42. I'll be 43 on Tuesday.
Yeah. So Louis goes, Rod, I was 46. Yeah. He goes, look at these monsters coming at me. Can you imagine, John? He wasn't in great shape then. Can you imagine playing at 46 and running a 3rd and 1 sneak as a punter?
No. I still remember that play. No, I can't imagine that. But Lou was one of the guys I definitely looked up to growing up. Lou and Bob Cameron are kind of the staples. I think Bob played for 23 years. Lou played for 25. And those are the guys I watched my whole entire childhood. And those are kind of what I tried to maybe not model my punting after, but the guys that I really looked up to, wanted to model my careers after.
Well, okay, Sea Lightning, I'll indulge him. Sea Lightning writes in and says, can you ask John how much he bench pressed in his prime?
In football, we always do the 225 test, So I did, I think I'm in my prime right now. I'm the strongest I've ever been right now. And I did about a month ago, I did 225 31 times. So
oh my God.
I'm looking, my max is probably somewhere 270 to 285, somewhere in that range right now.
Wow. And just speaking of all this, maybe you should go out and start punting again, because you see number one, CFL's coming off the best year. I don't know if you saw this, best year collectively of field goal percentage. Yeah. Punting records are going down. Yours is still up there, but I don't know for how long. Why are these records going down, John?
The kickers are just really, really good right now. The kickers in the CFL and the NFL. I think when they move the hash marks in, it's a lot easier to kick when the hash marks are more narrow. Some of those angles, especially like inside the 30, those are tough kicks when you're 7 to 8 yards outside of the uprights to your right or left. And now when they move those hashes in, I knew that all the records are going to start to fall. And you just see how good these kickers are, and almost all of them are Canadian too, which is nice. I think, to a little nod to the Canadian football.
No doubt. I'm glad I asked you that, because I didn't know the answer to it. I thought it might have been training. I thought it might have been strength, but narrowing the hash marks makes A heck of a big difference, no doubt.
Yeah.
How long do you think your punt? What is your rec? 62 yards average? Is it not?
50. I think it actually fell this year. I think that Jake Julian broke it out in Edmonton. I think he averaged about 53 yards a punt. So I was glad to lose that record to a fellow Canadian.
Okay. Well, yeah, at least he's a great guy. We want to
Great
have
guy.
that for sure. Yeah. All right, Johnny. Well, thanks for the time. Any last words? Anything? We covered a lot here. Anything burning off your chest you want to get?
Just Merry Christmas. Enjoy the season. Yeah, I know it's November, but and a Happy Thanksgiving to you, Rod. I know you're in the U.S. now, so it's big Thanksgiving week coming up next week.
Same to you, my friend. Great seeing you. Thanks for the time, John. To you and yours.
Yeah, all right. You too.
All right. Super Bowl champion and CFL alum, Jon Ryan. We'll be right back with Overtime right after this here on the Game Plus Television Network, live streaming on YouTube, and, of course, wherever you enjoy your podcasts. Okay, welcome back, everybody, for Overtime. And just hang on, everybody. We got some great comments from our wonderful, lovely audience we're going to get to here in Overtime. But I got to tell you, Overtime is brought to you by Overtime Hockey Lanes in Calgary. And I just want to salute and thank everybody that's gone to Overtime Hockey Lanes and checked in with Randy and Michelle, because they're telling me they are and they're having the time of their lives. We're a hockey country. It's like batting cages for baseball, driving ranges for golf, but it's specifically for hockey. What could be better? Overtime hockey lanes with state-of-the-art equipment, spacious shooting lanes, games for all ages. Overtime hockey lanes is the perfect place for your team, your family, your friends, your buddies, whatever. Book your lanes today at 28th Street Northeast, Calgary. To the text line, 902-518-3033. Laverne in Swift Current writes in. Oh, he says, great insight from Jim Lang. You two work well together. I feel so. Jim's often said that. He's like, we'd have a great show together. And I think that we would. He came down to see me. I was the voice of the Riders in 2017. He came down to BMO Field, and he wanted to hang out. And I felt terrible. He wanted to hang out after the game, and it was like bing, 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 zing, zing, zing. That's this world now. We didn't have a time to say two words to each other, let alone hang out. This is a lot. Yeah, I don't see him face to face now, but at least we get the chance to do this. Jim and I have gotten along really well for a real long time. I'll never forget that game, by the way. It was the game Deron Carter was with us, and we went to the airport, and Brandon Bridges' mom brought enough barbecued ribs and chicken for the whole entire team. Imagine feeding a football team. Brandon Bridges' mom cooked for everybody and had it in Tupperware containers. And Deron Carter, we get to the airport, and our, whatever he was, personnel guy, Mike Davis, says to Deron, you're not going to get through security with that Tupperware container of ribs. And Deron says, just you watch, Mike. Next thing you know, we're sitting at the departure gate. Here's Deron eating his ribs, made it through security with barbecue ribs in a Tupperware container. I mean, yeah, it's not like he's going to. Do you want to come on, Darren, and talk about that? It's not like Deron was going to take the plane over with a spare rib. But I want to say TSA in America. I don't know what they call it, Transport Canada. You can't be taking that Tupperware container through the radar. Deron found a way. That's not. By the way, Deron Carter and Cardinal Gibbons High School had their lunch handed to them last night. I haven't heard from Coach DeBuck. 47-0. I think they lost to Booker T School. And the season's over, right, Coach DeBuck? I felt like texting him this morning, but I thought better. Oh, no. Do you want to say it?
Oh, no.
Yeah, I was just going to text DeBuck and say, what now? But
How
I
about
didn't.
that?
I didn't even. No. My very first statistician's watching the program, and he does every day. Edmund Bankowski writing in. With the Rams, we were together, right, Eddie? He says, John and Rod, this year's run by our Rams brought back many fond memories of our 2000 run to the Vanier Cup. I was thinking the same, Eddie. Very few people love the Rams as much as Edmund Bankowski, and they just couldn't quite get there. Vanier Cup tomorrow, Laval versus Laurier. Moose picking Laurier. Right, Moose? You're picking Laurier? We lost him. Did I lose everybody? Nah, we're still going. Are we off the air, Moose?
No, we are not.
Okay. Sorry, I know you can't talk. What else? Gary in Penticton writes in, Gary with 2 R's. As long as Jerry Jones is the owner of the Cowboys, they will fail and will never be a good team. Brent from Wellington, Florida writes in, he says, thanks for keeping us entertained on our drive from Chicago to Green Bay. RJ says, go Packers. Well, guys, I hope you get a better game than last night with the Blackhawks beating our Panthers 3-1. Whew. Carlos in Indianapolis says, great show, everyone. Have a great weekend, and may your teams win. Well, the Cowboys won't, but I appreciate the effort. Sports update. I had it here. Hang on. Bear with me. The league-leading Winnipeg Jets are in Pittsburgh tonight, facing the Penguins on a light night in the NHL. The 16-3 Jets are looking to build on a 6-3 win over defending Stanley Cup champion Florida Tuesday that ended a 2-game losing streak. Anaheim hosts Buffalo in tonight's only other NHL matchup. Moose, we might want to do a thing where I'll just keep talking, sort of like pardon the interruption. You just cut me off and go to break like they do. And that would look cool. I do follow my NBA. The defending NBA champion Boston Celtics are in Washington tonight The Celtics have won 3 in a row and have the second-best record in the NBA, while the Wizards have dropped 9 straight and are narrowly ahead of the last place Philadelphia 76ers. The Toronto Raptors are off until Sunday.
Last minute of play.
When they visit the league-leading Cleveland Cavaliers. As Mike Hogan and I discussed off-air yesterday before we went in the green room, before we went to what is a Cavalier? What is a Cavalier? Do we have time in less than a minute to Google that? Anyways, the sports update's brought to you by Seat Giant. Stop paying U.S. dollars for games and concerts. Canadian-owned and operated with Canadians in mind. Super Bowl, college football, Taylor Swift, Justin Timberlake. We've got it all. Use promo code RPShow for 15% off now. Check us out at seatgiant.ca. Aaron in Winnipeg. Great show, Rod. Have a great weekend, everyone. Go Jets. We love you, Winnipeg. We love you, all of Canada. Drive safe. Take care of each other. We'll see you Monday here. Same channels, same station.